Alright guys, so the next book I want to talk to you about is Canadian-made Roughneck by Jeff Lemire. Now, I've read Jeff Lemire through things like Justice League of America, other work he's done with DC, and particularly, so the next book, starting over. So the next book I want to talk to you guys about is Roughneck by Jeff Lemire, Canadian-made. Jeff Lemire happens to live in Toronto area. Now, I've read Jeff Lemire through things like Justice League of America and his work through DC or Marvel, and I've never actually read his own work, and this is written and drawn by him. He has a very distinctive artistic style, and he uses it amazingly. Everything he draws has an exact purpose. He's not putting in details for no reason, and it is truly amazing. So, right now, I'll just tell you, go buy this. Go find it at your local comic shop first. If they don't carry it, have them order it. If they can't order it, find a local bookstore that does carry it. So, basically, Canadian writer and Toronto resident Jeff Lemire has a long biography of great works. Whether working with DC, Marvel, Valiant, Dark Horse, or his own characters, such as here in Roughneck, Lemire is a titan in storytelling, and I'm not using that word flippantly, a true titan in what he does. So Roughneck is the first Lemire original which I've read through to through, and now I feel foolish for not having read more of his work earlier. So this book follows the character of Derek Ouelette, who's an ex-NHL player. He used to play for the Rangers, and he was a goon in the sport, so he was an enforcer. His job was basically to beat the ever-living hell out of other players so that they wouldn't have time on the ice, so that they couldn't have time on the ice, and just to generally disrupt anyone who might try and take the puck from his team. Now, after leaving the NHL, Derek didn't know what to do with himself. He has no real training, no real experience, and a hell of a drinking habit. Now, we first meet him in the fictional Ontario town of Pimitamon, near Timmins. So for those non-Ontarians, that's about 700 kilometers or 7 hours and 14 minutes worth of driving north of Toronto, or a direct 1 hour and 20 minute flight from Toronto to Timmins. Now, Derek is basically sitting in the main town's bar. It's a small little town, so it's the bar called the Pit. And he's having a beer and watching a hockey game, just enjoying life. Not really. He wants to be left alone. So he asks the bartender to turn up the game, but some out-of-town snowmobilers, for those of you who don't know, further up north you can get around quite easily just by snowmobiling. So there's some out-of-towners, and they sort of recognize him. They're arguing amongst themselves, like, is that him? No, that's him, I tell you, that's Derek. So they go up and they ask him, hey, are you Derek Ouelette of the Rangers? And he's like, yeah, so what? And Derek, by the way, shaven head, grim-looking guy, big, strong. Not the kind of guy you want to go bother at a bar, or ever. And these guys just decide it's a good idea to try and do that. And all he wants to do is watch his game, have a drink, and relax. So basically, Derek gets up after these guys, bug him. They have choice words with him, and he's had enough. He just wants to drink. So he headbutts one guy and drops him. Like, the guy drops. And basically, the story goes from there. So, obviously, the cops get called. They want to take him in. And because it's a small town and he knows everyone, the way all that plays out is a little different than the way it normally would. And basically, like I said, his story continues from there. We get mixed up in the cops. We see his sister, his estranged sister, and the rest of the town, of course. And we learn exactly why he is the way he is. And we learn about his background, his history, his family, not being taught about his native background and how native culture might have helped him and played a role in his life because his mother was native. And of course that whole end of his family that he's estranged from, not to mention his father. And then now Lemire in this book not only creates an amazing character and town in Pimitamon, and Derek, of course, he visually creates it on the pages of his book. So you can write a great character but Lemire brings it to life in a hell of a cool way. So most of the book, for those of you who don't know and haven't seen it, is colored like this. So it's all pretty well black, blue, and white. And that's about it, which I think is perfect because it's sort of stale. Now Lemire has a very highly unique visual style, as demonstrated. It's simplistic in its rendering, not worrying about perfect anatomical accuracy, what looks human, what looks correct. Instead, it's just what gets out the message. And it's extremely expressive. So beyond the characters, the way the world itself is drawn and rendered is based on feeling instead of accuracy. So Jeff Lemire might draw a tree, and if he wants someone to feel isolated, the tree will be shriveled. It'll be small, long, and tall, and that way it feels alone. Even if it's in a forest, it feels alone and disconnected. And his whole style, whether it's the size of a hall, the smallness of a room, artistically and visually, Lemire creates these environments that are just daunting to feel. And that's what I mean. You feel them. Like Derek finds himself standing in the middle of an ice rink, and the ice rink and the hall it's in feel huge compared to Derek. And they are, but it feels that. It feels like he's all alone. And the world of this colorless world that he lives in is just incredible. And this goes for the outdoors as well as the indoors. And this lack of color persists. Now, rooms either feel claustrophobically tight and packed and busy, or like desolate and barren. Now, nothing in Pimitamon feels comfortable or bright. So when Derek and his sister need to get away, they end up finding themselves in a small shack, basically. Someone who lives out sort of in the boonies, is native as well, and he's sort of family, helps them. And he puts them up in this shack. And it's a small shack. It should be uncomfortable. It's basically got a bed and a wood stove, and that's it. But throughout the story, as Derek and his sister start getting together and warming up again, the shack itself, even though it's drawn colorlessly, even though it is empty, it no longer feels barren. Just the way it's drawn makes it feel that way. It makes you visually see it, and it's incredible. And then beyond just the rendering, the drawings themselves, the lines, what impresses me is Lemire's choice of color. So, as mentioned, this whole book is this barren white, black, or blue color, right, like snow. And when it rolls on, snow just tends to feel monotonous. You get snow blindness, or, because it's so damn bright, you can't see everything. Plus, it's just devoid of color, just like Derek feels. He feels devoid of life. He just wants to drink and be left the hell alone. What I do find interesting is the color only appears, for the most part, in flashbacks. Now, normally that might indicate life and hope and joy, but in Derek's life, color seems to indicate stress and challenging times from his past, around his father, around his sports career, anything like that. So due to these challenges in his life, he has let those colors go, and that's where you can feel him numbing himself just to not feel that stress and anxiety about his life. He feels more comfortable drained and devoid of life, numbing himself rather than dealing with life, which I think is a huge repercussion, and it speaks about mental health and anxiety and stress and maybe even PTSD from having a shitty family. But visually, Lemire lets you see it and feel it, and then in the writing you can really start to feel for this character. Because truth be told, if I'd met Derek in real life, if I went downtown right now and sat in a bar and I met him, I would probably think he's the biggest asshole in the world. But as we get to understand the character better, Derek really becomes this, not a good person, but you understand, you can sympathize, and you can really feel for him. You know why he is the way he is, and you don't judge him for it, which is incredible writing. So Roughneck is a fantastic book. Visually, the writing is great, the panel work is fantastic, so please, go out, pick up Roughneck. You're only going to find it printed like this anymore. I don't know if it was ever printed in issues. Kind of doubt it. Lemire tends to work that way. So please do pick it up. Enjoy the hell out of it. Go to your local comic book store first. If they don't have it, ask them to order it. If they cannot order it, go to your local bookstore. So once again, that's Roughneck by Jeff Lemire. It kicks ass, just like Derek. Go get it.